All right, well, today I wanted to discuss my experience of dating a Hooters girl. Years back, I went with a buddy of mine and a girl we were friends with at the time to Hooters one Friday night. The first thing I remember is walking into Hooters and we walked past her. The first thing I noticed is that we locked eyes briefly. She then came over to our table to take her order. I remember she looked deep into my eyes when I was ordering, and she was also smiling. You know, it also didn't help that the girl we were friends with was fairly attractive. And she was sitting next to me when the girl was taking my order. I definitely think pre-selection can make a difference. But I think this actually really helped me that night because she was sitting on my left. The chairs, like the stools, were like really close by. And I think maybe subconsciously she was thinking that she thought higher of me just because this girl we were friends with was sitting on my side of the table. That's just my inclination. For context, this girl was 19. She was about 5'8" with dark hair, dark brown eyes, full lips, and she had a great body. I mean, you kind of have to have a nice body if you're working at Hooters. Our friend that was sitting next to me actually complimented her on her hair, and I used it as a way to jump into the conversation, like jokingly saying something really stupid. I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was something really corny. When you tell a stupid joke to a girl that finds you attractive, it's usually like almost always met with a laugh, and unsurprisingly, that is exactly what happened. One of the things she told me was that a guy at the table nearest us was hitting on her, and she had referred to him as a creep. I remember also cracking a really stupid joke. I remember saying like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll keep you safe. I'll keep you protected." You know, at the time, if in the past I was about 300 pounds, if I were to say either of those jokes back then, you know, she would have viewed me as the creepy guy. I always find it interesting that like you could say the exact same thing as someone who's relatively attractive, or and also as the same thing. You could say that same thing as an unattractive guy, and you get two totally different responses. So once we finished our food, we asked for the checks, and she gave me this look, and I knew that when after this look of like she was smiling the whole time, and you know she really just gave me like I don't even know how to like really call it, but it was like more of like the hard eyes. It was that kind of look. And I just knew I was like, I've got to ask for a number, or I've got to write my number down on the check. I just said I had to. And the girl that we were with, she noticed it as well. And she's like, you should totally ask for her number. You know, so I did. And she actually, when she wrote down her number, she wrote her name, her number, and then she circled it with like a heart all around it. And this was kind of interesting, but like as I was getting up to leave, she was over at the table of where the creepy guy was, and she like deliberately turned around to look at me and smile while this guy was like talking to her. I just thought this was really interesting because like I've been on both sides of the coin, and I've literally been, you know, back when I was like 300 pounds and, you know, bald. I remember having that same thing happen to me, but being on the flip side of that coin. It was a really good feeling at the time, knowing that she stopped what she was doing, turned around to like look at me. You know, overall is really interesting how that can happen to you when you're unattractive. You know, you're on the bad side of the coin, and when she views you as attractive, you're on the right side of the coin. You know, it's just it's brutal. So I ended up texting her later that night, and I'd asked her, you know, what her first impression of me was. And, you know, I remember her texting saying that she, you know, quote unquote, she loved my height and got good vibes from me, and that I had sweet eyes. This is the halo affected motion. I mean, it really is. You know, looking back, if a girl says that you have sweet eyes, it was such a interesting like comment, because it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. I have hazel eyes, and I do have a pretty decent eye area, but it's like nothing special. I don't have hunter eyes. My eyes are not almond shaped. They're fairly average eyes. They're hazel, so it is what it is. But honestly, I think it was my height that sold it for her. Yeah, she really did like tall guys, and because I was wearing boots that night, I was closer to like 6'4". The brutal truth is that like height can help you so much in dating. Like outside of your face, it's definitely like the second biggest like feature on a guy that like really helps you. If I were like 5'9" or 5'10", 5'11", like I don't think that she would have like I don't think she would have been into me, like, to be honest. Like I really can't tell you how much height can really like save you in a lot of scenarios. It's not to say if you're like a shorter guy or like an average height guy that you can't do well with women, but like the brutal black pill is that like height can really help you. You can really pull like sometimes out of your league if you're tall enough. It's I don't know. It's just really interesting. Honestly, it was the height that I think created the spark. It wasn't my sweet eyes or my good vibes. It was the fact that when she saw me, she saw I was really tall and I was decent looking enough for her to trigger an attraction in that moment. I don't think I gave off really good vibes. I just, I tried to be funny. And, I just think when a girl says that you give off good vibes, it really means that she finds you physically attractive. And as a byproduct, whatever you say to her, at least in the start of the relationship, she sees as positive and she sees as, being like uplifting. And it's really interesting. I also think any type of colored eyes, whether it's like blue, especially blue, like blue eyes, women love blue eyes. Women like green eyes, and even hazel eyes. Like I have hazel eyes. I think it can definitely give you a slight boost. It also could have been the lighting that made them appear green. Like under kind of harsh lighting, my eyes do look green, so that could have also helped as well. It could have been a subconscious thing that when she was, kind of looking at me, she may have thought I had green eyes or something like that. For further context, at the time I was in pretty good shape. From a body fat percentage, I was probably around 15 to 20%, but I had a pretty good amount of muscle mass at the time. In years prior, if you haven't watched my other videos, I had lost a significant amount of weight in the prior years. And I'd also had a hair transplant as well prior to meeting her. So these are all factors in why I think she chose me. She was attracted to me at that particular time, because I did look a lot better than I did in previous years. About a week later, I was dog sitting at one of my mom's clients' houses, and I had asked her if she wanted to come over after her shift. This house was actually really nice. Like this house had a pool table in the basement. It had a hot tub in the back, and it also had like an in-ground pool. This was like in October though, so we weren't able to go in the pool. But she actually was able to come over after her shift, and she actually came over. She still had her Hooters uniform on, and she comes over, and the first thing we do is I take her down in the base. She actually met my mom for like a couple minutes. She met the dog we were sitting, and then we went down to the basement and we shot a game of pool. I don't think she really played pool. We played a quick game, and then I suggested we go to Applebees. There was an Applebees like literally like a minute away from the house. Looking back, this probably wasn't like the ideal thing to do. She did bring a bathing suit with her. So ideally I wish I would have taken her to the hot tub like right away. But we went to Applebee's and we got some food to eat for about an hour, and something really interesting happened is that midway through the dinner she was like on her phone
for like, I don't know, it's probably a couple minutes actually. And I jokingly asked her, I was like, oh, like, what the heck are you looking at? Just try to be funny. And the brutal part about it is she flipped the phone back and there was a picture of Nick Jonas. I remember this so vividly. And she said, she was like, yeah, he's nice to look at. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, oh, I'm not nice to look at. And she's like, oh no, you are too. Oh man, it was brutal. My game was so whack back then. It really was not. I'm not saying game is super important. It definitely there's some components of game that can definitely help. Yeah, after Applebee's, we went back to the house and we actually went into the hot tub. Looking back at this time, I was definitely very timid in the hot tub. We were just kind of making basic small talk, and I think I was trying to like jokingly flirt with her, but I was very much like in my head, and just kind of hoping to say the right things for her to continue to like me. But we ended up drying off and going inside to the living room, and I remember we watched Scream 2. That was what I found on the TV. And we were cuddling on the couch for a few hours. The couch was actually like fairly small. I remember we were cuddling like really awkwardly, and almost like my ribs were hurting afterwards. It was kind of weird. But I remember like after the movie, she was like, "I've got to go home for the night. Like I've got to get home." I remember I was walking her out to the car. And just kind of thinking in my head, I was like, "Oh man, like did I screw this up? I don't know what I did wrong." And I remember she was like looking up at me and like staring into my eyes, and she's had the same smile, from the restaurant. And I just went for the kiss, and we actually did kiss for a couple minutes. And then, we stopped, and then I said goodnight, and then she drove off. And then, we texted for a little bit over the next few weeks, but it definitely kind of fizzled out. From a black pill perspective, really the raw truth is I think she really liked me for my height, and that initially got me in the door. But she later realized after hanging out with me, especially when she like turned the phone to me, showing a picture of Nick Jonas, I think the raw truth is that she realized like mid-date when I took her to Applebee's that she could do better. This was at a time when like social media was just starting to kind of get big. Like Instagram really wasn't even like a huge thing at this time. But what I can say is that like the hype pill, as they call it, it's real. And sometimes, or a lot of times, it can do wonders for you. Like if you're at least average looking, ideally like above average looking, and you're in shape, like height can get you in the door of sometimes girls that are like definitely out of your league. And I think that's really what happened. I also think from a style perspective, I think the fitted baseball hat and the tight V-neck and boots, I don't know, could have made her think that I was kind of her type. I don't think fashion makes a huge difference in terms of your looks, but I think sometimes if you dress a certain way, it can attract a certain girl, and I think that could have been part of it as well. But yeah, that's my experience of dating a Hooters girl for a short period of time. And well, if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe. Until next time, take care.